The war was over. At least for him. Evan Carter, a human soldier, lay on the ground, his hands tied behind his back. His lips were dry. Blood ran down his face. Around him, tall figures in black armor walked like shadows, silent, cold, and without mercy. They were the Jalari, an alien warrior race known for their strength and cruelty. They didn't speak to humans. They didn't even show emotion. No fear, no sadness, no joy, only orders, only control. Evan had fought hard. He had seen many of his friends fall. The battle on the red-sanded planet of Draven had been brutal. Now he was the only one left alive. A prisoner. 2 Jalari soldiers dragged him toward a dark ship. He tried to stand, but a heavy fist knocked him back down. His legs gave up. His vision blurred. Then he saw her. She stood near the ship ramp. Taller than the others. Her armor was dark silver, shining in the sunlight. Her helmet hid her face, but her posture was strong, like a statue made for war. They called her Kelra. She was not just any warrior. She was a prime sentinel, the highest level of Jalari command. Even her own people feared her. The guards dropped Evan in front of her like a sack of meat. Kelra said nothing. She just stared down at him. Evan looked up slowly, blood dripping from his chin. For a moment, their eyes met. Her helmet's visor slid open for just a second. He saw her face. Pale purple skin. Sharp eyes, calm, empty, beautiful, but cold. She turned around and walked into the ship. The guards kicked Evan forward. Move. Inside the ship, the cell was dark and cold. The air smelled of metal and something old. Evan sat against the wall, breathing slowly. His body ached. Hours passed. Maybe days. He didn't know. No one spoke to him, no food. No answers. Then she came. Kelra stood outside his cell. She didn't speak. She just looked at him through the energy barrier that kept him trapped. Evan blinked. "You're the leader, right?" Silence. He gave a small smile, even though it hurt. "You could have killed me." "Why didn't you?" Kelra didn't answer. He tilted his head. "Do you understand me? Or should I talk slower?" She didn't move. But something changed in her eyes. "I guess I'll keep talking," Evan said. "It's been lonely in here. Still nothing." He sighed and leaned his head back. "You know, where I come from, we believe that silence speaks. But yours? Yours screams." Kelra turned and walked away. The next day, she returned. Evan looked up at her again. His voice was softer now. "What's your name?" No reply. He smiled a little. "Mine's Evan, Evan Carter. I'm a sergeant. Used to be anyway." She stood there like a statue. But this time she didn't leave quickly. Evan stared at her and said quietly, "You're beautiful." It was just one word. Soft, honest, human, and in that moment, everything changed. Kelra flinched, not a big movement, just a small shake. Her eyes widened like she had heard something forbidden, like the word had power, like it wasn't allowed. Her hands clenched. Her breathing changed. For the first time, she looked afraid. She turned sharply and left. Evan was confused. He whispered, "What just happened?" That night, alarms rang through the ship. Evan sat up. Heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. A scream, short and sharp, cut through the noise. A door slammed. The next morning, a different guard came. He was rough, angry. He kicked the cell wall and said, "No more talking." Evan looked at him. "Why? What happened?" "You broke her." Evan's heart dropped. "Her?" The guard snarled. "Kelra." She was punished for weakness. "She didn't report you?" She hesitated. "She's off duty now, maybe forever." And just like that, the guard left. Evan sat in silence, feeling cold inside. All he had said was one word, one simple human word. Beautiful. And it had shaken a deadly alien warrior like thunder. Why? What was that word to her? And what would happen next? Evan Carter didn't sleep that night. He sat in the dark corner of his cell, eyes wide open, mind racing. The word he had whispered, beautiful, was still hanging in the air like a ghost. Why did it affect her? She was a warrior, a commander, a killer. She had faced death without blinking. But when he said that one soft word, she trembled. What was he missing? Footsteps echoed again in the hallway. Evan stood up quickly, expecting the rough guard from earlier. But it wasn't him. It was Kelra. She wasn't wearing her full armor this time. Only the inner suit. Her helmet was off. Her long black hair fell past her shoulders. Her expression was hard, but something was different. Her eyes looked wounded. She stepped in front of the energy barrier, arms folded. No greeting, no warning, just silence. Evan stepped closer. "You're back," he whispered. Kaelra's voice was sharp. "Do not speak that word again." Evan blinked. "What word?" She narrowed her eyes. "You know." Evan's tone softened. "Why? What does it mean to you?" Her jaw tightened. "Among the Jalari, that word is dangerous. It creates feelings, and feelings destroy warriors." He nodded slowly. "But you are a warrior, one of the strongest I've ever seen." She looked away for a moment. "I was," Evan frowned. "They punished you, didn't they?" She didn't answer. Her silence was enough. There was a mark barely visible across her cheek. A bruise, not from battle, from control, from her own people. Evan took a step closer to the barrier. "I'm sorry." Kaelra looked at him sharply. "Do not feel sorry for me. That is weakness." He didn't argue. Instead, he sat down on the cold floor. His voice was quiet, kind. "Where I come from, kindness isn't weakness. It's strength." She watched him. Her eyes flickered, like a battle was happening inside her. After a few minutes, she turned and walked away. Over the next few days, she came often. She didn't talk much, but she watched him. Sometimes she just stood outside his cell for hours. Other times she brought food or water without a word. Evan began speaking to her softly, even if she didn't respond. He told her stories, about Earth, about blue skies, warm rain, music, laughter. He didn't say beautiful again, but every word he spoke was filled with quiet care. One time, while sharing a story about his mother planting flowers in their backyard, he looked up and saw her lips move, just barely. A whisper. He leaned closer to the barrier. "What did you say?" She looked down. "Flowers," Evan smiled. "Yeah, yellow ones. They looked like suns." Kaelra nodded slowly, as if trying to imagine them. That night, Evan heard two guards talking outside. "She's losing focus." She defends him. "It's a disgrace. She should be reprogrammed." Reprogrammed? He didn't know what that meant exactly, but it sounded cruel. Cold. He needed answers. The next day, when Kaelra came, he didn't smile. He didn't tell stories. He asked one question. "What does reprogrammed mean?" Her body stiffened. "Mind control. They erase emotions, clean the memory." Evan's heart dropped. "They'll do that to you?" Kaelra looked away. "If I show more weakness." "Yes." Evan stood up. "Then leave, run, get out of here. They're killing who you are." She shook her head. "There is nowhere to go. I don't belong with them. But I can never belong with you. Why not?" She looked into his eyes, and for the first time he saw pain. Real, human-like pain in her gaze. "Because you called me something I cannot be," she whispered. "You saw me as more than a weapon." He stepped closer to the energy field. "You are more than a weapon." Her hand slowly reached out and touched the glowing barrier between them. So close yet still far. His voice dropped. "Let me say it again." "No," she said, voice shaking, but he didn't listen. He stepped even closer. His lips barely moved. "Beautiful." Her fingers twitched. A tear ran down her cheek, not water. Not like human tears, but silver. A single drop. She quickly turned and walked away, fast, like she was running from something burning inside her. That night, everything changed. Evan's cell door opened. It wasn't a guard. It was Kaelra. Her face was serious. Her voice low. "You must leave. Tonight. They plan to erase me tomorrow." Evan stood confused. "Why are you telling me this?" She looked at him with deep eyes. "Because you reminded me that I was once alive." She handed him a cloak, a small energy knife, and a map of the ship's maintenance tunnels. He stared at her. "Come with me." She shook her head. "Not yet. But I'll find you, if I survive." And just like that, she disappeared into the shadows. Evan wrapped the cloak around himself and stepped into the unknown. The metal corridors were silent. Only the sound of Evan's soft steps echoed through them. Every second felt like a heartbeat, too fast, too loud. Kaelra's words played again and again in his mind. "They will erase me tomorrow." He didn't understand how a species could erase memories like cleaning a floor. He only knew one thing. He had to find her. Evan followed the map Kaelra gave him. It led through narrow tunnels filled with humming wires and blinking red lights. The air was thick with dust and metal heat. He moved slowly, holding the small energy knife close to his chest. His heart pounded. He had no plan, only her promise. "I'll find you." But hours passed. No sign of Kelra. No sign of anything alive until he heard something, a voice, low and strained. He followed it carefully, crawling between two pipes until he reached a small observation room. Through the glass window, he froze. It was Kelra. She was on her knees, arms chained to a metal frame. Electric blue light ran along her armor as energy pulsed into her body. Her eyes were closed, lips shaking. Around her stood 3 Jalari officers. One of them spoke in a cold voice. "Emotions are poison. You have failed your code." Evan's stomach turned. He wanted to scream, to break the glass, but if he did, they would both die. He could only watch as Kelra's body jerked again under the machine's control. The lead officer said, "Erase her memories. She will serve again, without weakness." Kelra opened her eyes suddenly, gasping for breath. Her voice came out broken but strong. "No, I would rather die free." Then she looked up right at the window, straight into Evan's eyes. He didn't know if she could really see him through the glass, but somehow she did. Her lips moved silently. "Run!" Evan's hands shook. He backed away from the window, biting his lip to keep from shouting. But he couldn't run. He wouldn't. He waited until the guards left the chamber. Then he searched for another way in. There, a maintenance door, locked but not impossible. He pulled a small energy cell from the wall and shorted the panel. Sparks flew. The door clicked open. Inside, Kelra was still chained, her breathing slow and shallow. Her armor was cracked. Her pulse glowed faintly under her skin, a sign of pain for her kind. Evan rushed to her side. "Kelra, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open. "You came back." "Of course I did," he said, cutting her chains. "You saved me. It's my turn now." She shook her head weakly. "You shouldn't be here." "If they find you, then we'll both go down fighting," Evan interrupted. For a second, she just stared at him. Something in his voice, something human, made her stop resisting. When the last chain broke, she fell forward. He caught her. Her body was cold, trembling. "I can't walk," she whispered. "Then I'll carry you." He lifted her in his arms the same way a soldier carries a fallen friend. Every step down the hall felt heavier, but he didn't stop. Suddenly, an alarm screamed. Red lights flashed. Doors began to seal. "They know," Kelra said softly. "They will hunt us both." Evan kept moving. "Then they'll have to catch us first." They ran through smoke and sirens, hiding behind steel pillars and empty chambers. Twice guards passed so close that Evan could hear their breathing. He held his breath each time, praying in silence. They finally reached the ship's lower bay. Evan laid her down behind some crates. Her armor sparked with short circuits. "Can you still fight?" he asked. Kelra gave a weak smile. "I was born fighting." She pulled a small blaster from her belt and aimed it toward the door. Footsteps echoed again. Many Jalari soldiers stormed in. "Stop them!" one shouted. Kelra opened fire. Bolts of blue light filled the room. Evan ducked, covering her flank with a stolen rifle. For a few seconds, it looked hopeless. Then Kelra stood tall again, energy flowing back through her. Her voice was like thunder. "For too long I obeyed, no more." She moved with terrifying speed, spinning, shooting, striking. Her eyes glowed bright silver. When the smoke cleared, the bay was silent. Only the two of them were left standing. Evan dropped the rifle and looked at her. "You're bleeding." Kelra wiped her mouth and smiled faintly. "Not all scars are bad." He stepped closer. "Come with me. We'll find a ship. We'll leave this place," she hesitated. "If I go with you, I can never return. I will be hunted by my own kind." He met her eyes. "Then we'll run together." For the first time, she didn't argue. She simply nodded. And as they stepped onto a stolen transport, the stars outside looked closer than ever. But as the engine started, Kelra looked back, toward her homeworld, her army, her past. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "They will come for us." Evan smiled. "Let them try." The stolen Jalari transport shook violently as it flew through the black clouds of Draven's upper sky. Evan gripped the controls tightly. His hands were slick with sweat. The ship was not made for humans. Half the buttons glowed in a language he couldn't read. But it didn't matter. He had Kelra beside him, and they were running for their lives. In the co-pilot seat, Kelra sat with her head leaned back, eyes closed, blood trailing down her jawline. Her breathing was shallow. The fight in the bay had taken too much from her. Evan looked at her. "Hey, stay with me, all right? You're not allowed to die on me now." Kelra didn't respond, but her fingers twitched slightly. She was still there, still fighting. Behind them, 3 Jalari warships lit up the radar. "They're chasing us," Evan whispered. Outside the window, the sky turned red. Suddenly, boom, a shockwave slammed into their ship, alarms screamed. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Evan lost control as the ship spun sideways. Kelra was thrown out of her seat and slammed into the wall. Evan crawled toward her. "Kelra!" She groaned but didn't open her eyes. Evan pulled her close and grabbed the emergency pod handle. A tiny escape capsule was attached below the cockpit. Another blast hit the wing. They had seconds. He dragged her into the pod and slammed the hatch. The ship outside was already burning. He pressed launch. With a deafening roar, the pod shot out, falling like a comet through the thick red sky. They crashed into the dense forests of Draven's unmarked southern lands. Trees split apart. The ground cracked. The pod slid across the soil before slamming into a giant rock. Silence. Evan gasped for breath. His ribs hurt. Everything hurt but Kelra. She wasn't moving. He crawled to her, shaking her gently. "Kelra, wake up, please." Still nothing. He placed 2 fingers on the side of her neck. A faint pulse, weak, slowing. He ripped open a med kit and began patching her wounds. Her armor was broken, but underneath her skin glowed with strange bruises, blue and silver. He worked quickly, whispering, "Don't quit on me. You didn't let me die. Now it's my turn." Hours passed. The forest grew darker. Kelra remained still. That night, Evan built a small fire outside the pod using scraps and broken branches. He sat beside her, wrapping a cloth around her shoulder to stop the bleeding. She looked peaceful now, but he knew peace was not real here. Jalari patrol ships flew above every few hours. He hid the fire when they passed, hoping they wouldn't detect him. He was tired, hungry, but his eyes stayed on her. As the fire crackled low, he began talking. "Back on Earth, we have something called a sunrise. It turns the sky orange and gold. You'd like it," he laughed softly. "You're probably too tough to admit it." Still no answer. But something about speaking helped. By morning, Kelra opened her eyes. Barely. "Evan." He rushed to her. "I'm here," she winced. "Did we escape?" "Yeah, we crashed, but we're alive." She tried to sit, but failed. "They will find us. They never stop," he nodded. "Then we move before they do." They walked together, slowly through the forest. Kelra leaned on him for support. Every step was heavy, but together, they kept going. A day passed, then another. Evan found berries and a water spring. Kelra taught him which plants were safe. Slowly, her strength returned. They talked more. Not about war, but about life. She asked him about Earth, what oceans looked like, what children sounded like when they laughed. He asked her what it felt like to be raised without love. She answered with silence. That silence hurt more than words. One night, they sat by a fire again. Kelra stared at the stars through the trees. "They told us emotions make you weak," she said softly. "That feeling love or pain breaks the mind." Evan looked at her. "But you feel them now," she nodded. "And I'm still standing," he smiled. "Exactly." Then he whispered, barely loud enough to hear, "You're not weak, Kelra. You're alive." She turned to him. Her eyes shone, not with tears but with light. Suddenly, a sound. A soft beep. A tracker. Kelra looked down. Her armor, damaged but still functioning, was blinking. "No," she whispered. "They found us." Evan grabbed the blaster and pulled Kelra to her feet. "We run. Now." They sprinted through the trees, dodging branches and roots. In the distance, glowing red lights appeared. Jalari soldiers. "At least 10. "Split up," Kelra shouted. "They'll follow me." "No." Evan grabbed her arm. "We stay together." But she pushed him toward a hidden trail. "Go! I'll find you again." A blast of energy hit a tree near them, setting it on fire. Kelra kissed his forehead quickly. "Live, human." Then she turned and ran toward the enemy, blaster ready. Evan wanted to scream, but he ran the other way. The fire grew behind him, the trees fell, and all he could hear was his heart beating. Evan didn't know how long he had been running. The trees behind him were on fire. The ground was hot with falling ash. His legs moved without thought, just fear. Just survival. Kaelra had turned back to face the enemy alone. She told him to live. But each step away from her felt like betrayal. At dawn, Evan found an old Jalari outpost hidden deep in the cliffs. It had been abandoned years ago, probably before the war even began. Moss covered the walls. Vines broke through the roof. Nature had claimed it back. He hid inside, breathing hard, alone. He didn't sleep. Couldn't eat. His mind was on Kaelra. Had she survived? Had they captured her? Would she remember him? If she did? 3 days passed. Each one felt longer than the last. Evan stayed hidden, surviving on berries and water. He kept the blaster close. Every noise in the forest made him jump. His eyes scanned the skies for enemy ships, but nothing came. Then, on the 4th night, he heard a sound. Footsteps. Fast, uneven. He raised the blaster, ready to fire. Then he saw her, Kaelra. She was limping, one arm holding her side, face bruised, armor torn, but it was her. Evan ran to her. Kaelra. She blinked at him, stared, but said nothing. He stopped. Something was wrong. She looked at him like he was a stranger. Inside the old outpost, he wrapped her wounds and helped her sit. She didn't resist. But she didn't speak either. Her eyes were blank, not cold like before, but empty. Evan spoke softly. It's me, Evan. She looked at him again, confused. Evan? He nodded. Yes, you saved me. We escaped together. You were hurt. She interrupted, her voice hollow. I don't remember. His heart sank. She touched her head. They must have used the memory wipe on me. Partial damage, Evan swallowed hard. You don't remember anything? The ship, the forest? The word I said? She frowned. What word? He hesitated, then shook his head. Never mind. That night he lit a small fire inside the outpost. Kaelra sat across from him, silent. He decided to try something, so he told her stories. Not about the war. Not about battles, but about Earth. How the ocean smelled in the morning. How children ran through fields chasing butterflies. How his mom used to bake warm apple pies every Sunday. Kaelra didn't react at first. But then she asked, what's pie? Evan smiled. Sweet food. Made with fruit. Crusty outside, soft inside. Like joy in a circle. She nodded slowly. I would like to try that. A pause, then quietly she asked, did we talk a lot before? Evan looked at her, eyes warm. You used to just listen. But later, yes, we talked. Another pause. Were we close? He nodded. Very. Over the next few days, he kept talking to her. He told her about the jokes they shared. The way she raised her eyebrow when confused. The way she once saved him from a fire drone without blinking. Kaelra listened carefully. Like a child hearing bedtime stories. Sometimes she asked questions. Other times, she just stared into the fire. Her body healed faster than her memory. But something inside her was changing. Again. One evening, as the sun turned the sky orange, they sat outside the outpost. Birds flew above. The wind moved gently through the trees. Evan picked a small purple flower and placed it beside her. Do you know what this is? She shook her head. It's just a flower, he said. But the way it stands in the wind reminds me of you. Kaelra looked at him. Why? Because it bends, but it doesn't break. She was quiet, then she asked, did I ever laugh? Evan chuckled. Once, just once. I told you a bad joke. You called it foolish. She tilted her head. Try again. He did. She didn't laugh, but she smiled. That night, by the fire, Evan stared into the flames. He took a deep breath and said the word again. Beautiful. Kaelra turned sharply. Her eyes locked onto his. For a second, just one heartbeat, he saw something flash in her expression. Shock, memory, emotion. She whispered, that word. It feels like home. Evan's voice cracked. You remember? Her hand touched her chest, not with my mind, but with something else. My heart, maybe. She reached forward, her fingers touched his hand. Warm, real. They didn't speak for the rest of the night, but they didn't need to. In silence, Something was reborn, not memories, but something even stronger. Trust. The night was quiet. But something inside Kaelra was loud, not her heartbeat, not her thoughts, something deeper. It was feeling. She sat beside the fire, watching the flames dance. Evan was sleeping not far from her, his chest rising and falling peacefully. He trusted her. Even when she didn't remember him, he stayed. He cared. He spoke to her like she mattered. She placed her hand on her chest, right over her heart. This warmth inside. It didn't come from the fire. It came from the word he had spoken again. Beautiful. And somehow, that one word had reached places no weapon ever had. In the morning, Kaelra woke up before Evan. She stepped outside the broken outpost into the golden light. The forest was alive, birds calling, wind moving gently through the trees. She walked alone for a while, following no path, and suddenly, her memories returned, not slowly, but like a wave crashing over her mind. She gasped. She saw herself carrying Evan through the forest. She remembered standing against her own people. She saw the way she looked at him when he smiled, and most of all, she remembered the first time he had whispered beautiful. Her knees bent, and she fell to the ground, not from weakness, but from the weight of everything she had once hidden. Later, Evan found her sitting by the river. He walked up behind her quietly. "You okay?" Kaelra turned slowly. Her eyes shimmered, not with light but emotion. "I remember everything." Evan froze. "Everything?" She nodded. "The battles, the escape, the pain. You." He sat beside her, careful not to speak too soon. "I wasn't supposed to feel anything," she whispered. "The Jalari trained me to erase myself." He looked at her gently. "But you didn't, you're still here." She touched the water with her fingers. "You showed me who I was when I forgot. You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself." She turned to him. "I will never forget again." That same afternoon, the sky turned gray. Kaelra's armor was patched, her weapon cleaned, her mind sharp. She was not the same woman who had fallen to her knees in chains. She was stronger now. Not because she felt nothing, but because she felt everything. She stood in the clearing with Evan. "We need to go," she said. "Where?" he asked. Kaelra's eyes looked up at the clouds. "Home, but not to kneel, to stand." Evan frowned. "You want to go back to the Jalari? They'll kill us," she shook her head. "They'll try, but they won't win." That night they found a signal tower deep in the forest. It still worked. Kaelra activated a beacon, one only Jalari leaders could use. It sent a message straight to the High Command. She spoke only 4 words. "I challenge the code." By the next day, the sky above them was filled with ships. 10 Jalari drop pods landed in the clearing. Out of them came soldiers, elite, trained, cold. They formed a circle around. Kaelra and Evan, one stepped forward. Commander Vashrek, the same one who had ordered her punishment weeks ago. "Kaelra," he said, "you have called for challenge. Speak your reason." She stepped forward, tall and proud. "The code is broken. It teaches fear, not strength." Gasps echoed among the soldiers. "You feel too much," Vashrek said. "You are corrupted." Kaelra didn't flinch. "I feel, and I fight, and I live," he raised a hand. "Then face the trial." A great circle was drawn in the dirt. Kaelra stood on one side. Vashrek on the other, no guns. Only blades. Evan watched, heart racing. "You don't have to do this," he whispered. Kaelra looked at him. "I do. For every warrior who was forced to forget. For myself. For you." The fight began. Vashrek moved fast. His blade slashed through the air like lightning. Kaelra dodged, countered, struck back. Her movements were like wind and fire, sharp, powerful, alive. Every hit she took made her stronger. Every time she bled, she roared louder. This was not the same woman from the prison. This was Kaelra the reborn. Vashrek lunged. She flipped over him, landed behind, and with one clean strike, knocked his blade from his hand. She placed her sword at his neck. "I should kill you," she said, "but I won't." He stared up at her, shocked. "Because I have something you fear," she whispered. "Heart." She lowered her blade. The other soldiers watched in silence, one by one. They knelt, not in fear, In respect, Vashrek said nothing. He simply stood and walked away. The code had been broken, and something new had been born. Later, under the stars, Kaelra sat with Evan. "I don't know what comes next," she said softly. Evan took her hand. "We write it together." She leaned her head on his shoulder. For the first time in her life, she smiled without hiding. Not as a warrior, not as a weapon, but as herself, reborn. The sky above was no longer red, it was silver, quiet, watching. For the first time in Jalari history, the warriors had bowed not to fear, but to freedom. Kaelra had done what no one thought was possible. She broke the code. But now, a new danger came, not from a single commander, but from the Jalari High Order, the leaders who controlled entire star systems. They had received the message. They were not pleased, and they were coming. A large ship hovered above the forest, its engines shaking the ground. Kaelra and Evan stood together, surrounded by Jalari soldiers, some still confused, some ready to defend their new leader. A voice spoke from the sky, broadcast through a loudspeaker. "Kaelra, surrender. Return to the old ways, or we will destroy the human world." Evan froze. "They know about Earth?" Kaelra nodded. "They always knew. They just never had a reason to care until now." Evan looked up. "They're threatening my people." "Because of me?" Kaelra turned to him. "No, because of us. What we share scares them. They fear what they don't understand." He looked at her. "So what do we do?" She stepped forward. Calm, proud. "We fight with truth." The High Order sent down a messenger, a woman dressed in gold, her face hidden behind a smooth mask. She stood before Kaelra. "You have 30 breaths to choose," she said. "Bow or we begin the fire." Kaelra didn't blink. "I already made my choice." "Then your world burns." The messenger raised a device, preparing to send the command. But Kaelra raised her voice, loud, clear, for all to hear. "Wait." The forest went silent. "I want one word," she said. "One word to decide everything." The messenger tilted her head. "What word?" Kaelra stepped back and looked at Evan. He was standing quietly, watching her like it was the last time. She smiled at him. Then she turned to the soldiers, to the stars, to the skies, and she said the word, "Beautiful." There was a pause, then a ripple. One by one, Jalari soldiers stepped forward. Some placed their weapons on the ground. Others lifted their helmets and looked at each other, not as tools, but as people. "Beautiful," one whispered. "Beautiful," another repeated. A quiet wave passed through the entire forest. It wasn't just a word. It was a door opening. For centuries, they had been taught that beauty was weakness, that emotion was death. But in that moment they saw the truth. Feeling is not weakness, it is life. The messenger lowered her hand. "The High Order will not accept this," she said. Kaelra nodded. "Then let them try to stop us." She turned to her warriors. "We build a new path now. No more cold hearts, no more chains. We fight to protect, not to control." The army raised their weapons not for war but for protection, for peace. Later, as the ship from the High Order disappeared into the stars, retreating, Evan and Kaelra stood on the hill where it all began. He looked at her. "You did it," she shook her head. "We did it," he smiled. "So what now?" Kaelra looked at the horizon. "Now we live. You'll show me Earth," he chuckled. "You're gonna love rain, and pie, and trees that change colors," she smirked. "And I will teach you how to fly a ship without crashing into trees." They both laughed. Then silence. The kind of silence that feels safe. Evan took her hand. "You know, when I first said that word beautiful, I didn't just mean how you looked." Kaelra turned to him. "I meant your strength, your spirit, your fight." She looked down, eyes soft. "I never thought I'd feel this." He stepped closer. "That's the best part. You don't plan love. It just happens." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Say it again." He leaned in, his voice warm, gentle, beautiful. Kaelra closed her eyes. A tear slid down her cheek, this time not silver, not strange, but real, human, alive. Final scene. The stars moved above like silent watchers. A small human ship left the planet, flying toward Earth. Inside it, two souls sat together, not as soldier and prisoner, not as alien and human, but as something new, something powerful, something beautiful.